project on a daily basis. Rachel Lavin, Norwegian University of Science and Technology. I am the Web Architect candidate for this marketing strategy.
I'm Mara Amy from University. I'm in our research and development department.
My name is Michael Mann. I'm chair of the business forum, which is an alliance of chairmen focused on development and product of product production. Oh, sorry. Good morning. My name is Ian Brannigan. I'm the head of regional development and Western Development Division. Interest here is in Oda and the team. Also, really in bringing the benefits of a circular economy approach to, I think, the west of Ireland, which is a natural sort of landing site, positive opportunities for
Sealand from founder of Seas Energy Marine Awareness Research and Activity Centre, and also the Sustainability Education Manager with the Ocean Race, which is now was formerly known as the Volvo Ocean Race. And we've been working on a number of net reuse projects, which started with the IM net reuse, looking at offcuts, and working with a multidisciplinary team of artists, engineers, sustainability managers, educators, and stakeholders within the community, including fishermen. And we're finishing up the project with BIM, and we're now working with the EPA to run that around nationally, to run the project nationally around Ireland. And I've got Anita, who's the artist and designer on the project, talking a bit more.
Yeah, Dr. Anita design and lead on the two teams, the two projects. And we're already using circular economy, and we have a bespoke methodology that's developed over the years to engage in an integrated way across social, economic, and environmental resilience. And we're working on that project mostly with micro-enterprise, 3D printing, so we look at both materials side in terms of strengths and opportunities. We're shifting from nylon into PET because there's a lot already happening with nylon. So it's maybe not the big problem, that is coming in. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks very much. So we're going to move now to Innovation Norway. So anybody who's joined online, if you can remain muted, we're going to go to mute now, Mari, and you're going to be the host. So
yeah.
Test, would you speak, Mari, to make sure everybody can hear you?
Yeah, can you hear me, everyone?
Okay. So can everyone online hear Mari? If you thumbs up.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
Speak again.
Mari, can you speak again? Do we do a test here?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. 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 So it's over to you, Mari. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I had some trouble hearing the presentation from all people, but so we have to take that in consideration when you're asking questions later. Yeah, I can just start. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present the Norwegian Cluster Program, and it was very interesting to hear about the Blue Circular Economy project. That's a really important area, of course. And yeah, you had a brief introduction of me earlier on. My name is Mari Kokleite. I work in Innovation Norway as a cluster advisor in Møre og Romsdal. It's the same region that NTNU Ålesund lies in. Innovation Norway is the Norwegian government's instrument for innovation and development in Norwegian enterprises and industry. And one of our three main goals is to create more innovative environments and clusters. So that's a very important part of our organization's work. So now I'm going to tell you a brief input to the cluster program, and also why we use clusters as an important tool in the transformation of Norwegian businesses and enterprises. Just trying to. Yeah, the cluster program is a national program, and it aims to trigger and enhance collaborative development activities in cluster. That's an important precision, as the clusters are going to work with things that each company cannot manage and succeed with on their own. They need to collaborate to make that happen, and that's especially important, for SMEs, as they often have limited resources to do things. And the main goal of the cluster program in Norway is to increase the individual companies' innovativeness and competitiveness. And that's also a very important thing about our cluster program, because it's built up with a bottom-up approach. That means that the initiatives and the project should come from the companies. They engage in projects, and then they can apply for funding from us. It's not the other way around, which is also common in some countries, when the government perhaps selects an area that they want to have a cluster in, and then they open for companies to apply on that area of expertise. Here we have the initiative needs to come from the company. And the sub-goal is to enhance the cluster capacity and attractiveness, and we to cluster incentives to develop and strengthen innovation ecosystem, both regionally and nationally, and also internationally. So the program has today three different levels. The target group for the arena level is immature clusters. However, I need to say that this is a very popular program, so even if the target group is immature clusters, they need to be at a certain level and have some documented experience of collaborating even in this area. And they can get support for 3 to 5 years, and they get an annual support of 200,000 euros each year. And today we have 19 clusters in the program at arena level. The next level is the Norwegian Center of Expertise, NCE, and this is for mature clusters, which has a national position in market and in their area of expertise. And the support period is 5 to 10 years, and they most often receive 5,000 euros each. And then we have 3 global centers of expertise. All this is in the ocean area, where Norway has global positions in these markets. And when we pick out clusters, we look at the resource base, and we have moved from a more traditional innovation system where we're looking for collaboration between academics and corporate and research facilities, to also include entrepreneurs and capital side, because we see that in a modern and the global society that we live in, we need to have even more innovation and to connect the entrepreneurs with the more established companies. And also, that's very important. And also, we need capital to make this transformation possible. So In our clusters, there are partners from all of these areas working together, and then they have cluster management, and it needs to be a core member commitment, and then these members have to develop collaborative activities. That's kind of the main points. And as I said, this program, it's very popular, and then there's an annual open competition for setting clusters, and each year we get new cluster initiatives from all over the country. And we have a thorough evaluation of these proposals, and there are 5 selection criteria which is based, and the cluster needs to have a good resource base. We are evaluating if this cluster and these companies has a growth potential. That's very important. Do they present a clear and convincing strategic idea? Are there commitment and leadership in the cluster? And is there a convincing implementation plan? Because of course we see that that's really important when many companies are coming together to solve joint problems and joint issues. You need to have a plan for how to do that, because the companies are often busy with their own day-to-day activity and operation. So there needs to be a clear plan for how and which activities that are going to explore these ambitions. And we then select the best ones, and each year we have some new clusters joining the program. And when they are joining, they get the support from us, from the government, and they get a co-founding 50% of basic cluster activities through a cluster facilitator or cluster organization. They get advisory services from us. For instance, we have a specialized cluster advisor in every region. In my case, I follow up 5 different cluster projects, and that's my full-time job, and working closely with them and trying to support them at our best to make them succeed with their ambitions. And when you are going to work together as a cluster, we see that there are many different activities that the companies are choosing to work together with. Many are working with lots of these activities. The main thing, of course, still is to increase the competitiveness and the value creation in the companies. And all of these activities are good examples of things that the companies are not able to do on their own. For instance, if a small or medium-sized company is going to find out which is the best research facility for my kind of problem, it's not so easy to go out in Europe and find and orientate as a small company. But that's something that a lot of companies can do together. So partner search and trust building is very important. They often set joint visions and strategies, and they work together to make collaborative innovation. For instance, perhaps 3 companies can come together with 1 or 2 research institutions, and perhaps a brand new company and established company come together, and they this and perhaps often explore brand new opportunities and develop new products and services. Branding and communication and building attractiveness for the industry is very important, and more often in the past couple of years we have seen that the clusters are investing in joint infrastructure. That could be product labs, it could be the printer infrastructure that is not possible or very difficult for most companies to have on their own, but when they join forces, they make it happen. And when we follow our clusters, we see that they, of course, are setting goals, and that's very important. They have this is examples of goals of each of our clusters. It's not the program goal in itself, and the clusters have specific goals on having stronger interaction and collaboration. They want to have common strategic focus. They want to increase innovation and entrepreneurship in their companies. They want to have better access to competence, stronger global orientation, and they wish to increase and improve their attractiveness, both for customers, partners, and also work. And again, it is important. The activities and the goals should be directed to collaboration between the partners. We have Innovation Norway has worked with these cluster programs for almost 15 years, and we see that, and it definitely is today, that developing clusters with growth potential is an important element in the Norwegian trade and innovation policy. And organized clusters is valued as an efficient tool for creating attractive environments. And we see that companies has an increasing willingness to invest in joint solutions, because that's not always so easy, because the companies has to invest and participate to get something out of it. But when you start investing this time, it can be difficult to know if you're going to give or go, if you're going to have something back. So we see that the companies are very mature and they want to participate and really invest in these kind of projects. So we see a great demand for cluster innovation environments for programs funding. And we did a recent evaluation of our cluster program, and it shows a really positive outcome. We as the government invest a lot of money in the program, and we see that the participating companies has a much greater increase in their value creation and their revenue. So the investment that the government makes is returned in increased value creation in just 3 years. So this is a good investment. So that's why we all also use these clusters as a role in the transformation businesses. So the government wants to utilize the clusters as a tool for innovation and for transformation. Because just as I said earlier, it's many things that are difficult for a small and medium-sized company, and also big companies here in Norway to do on their own. They are too busy making profit in their day-to-day operations, and they need someone to push them out of their limits. And we see that the clusters are really doing that. So I have some examples. This is one of the global center expertise that our program is in the program, GCE Blue Maritime, and the maritime cluster on the west coast of Norway is one of the world's most complete maritime clusters, and they are a competitive hub in advanced offshore vessels. And of course, as most of you might know, they're not been built offshore vessels for some time now because of the low oil price. And the cluster has been really important in finding new business opportunities for the companies. and they identify these opportunities already in their application in 2014, that it would be really important for the businesses to find more more markets, and these 3 markets was identified as really important for the companies that they could work on together. Also, we have a fish farming technology aquatech cluster, which is located in Trondheim, and there are over 100 companies that are working together to deliver technology for sustainable growth in aquaculture food production around the world, and establish a global position for farming technology from Norway. And also, this is a very good example, NCE Maritime Clean Tech. The cluster, they are focusing on creating forward-looking, innovative and competitive solutions for the maritime sector that reduces environmental harmful emissions to air and sea. And they are really pushing their companies to look into the future. And they're doing that by creating signal projects like these two. Here on the top is the Maritime Clean Tech project, or some 3 owl-driven passenger boat as a possibility for the businesses to actually realize and make it happen. And they and by creating this dream image for the cluster, the companies get really engaged and creates lots of projects, smaller projects, under this big project to actually create solutions that will make this happen. And they are just doing the same with cruise ships now, because as you know, the cruise industry represents a lot of things that is not so good connecting to the environment, and they just presented this dream image of a brand new cruise ship for the future. We just launched it, and it's not for real yet, but they look that when we come to 2030, this should be the future. Then we would have a zero emission ship that our suppliers should deliver to. So, this kind of projects, it's really gotten members to identify themselves with the cluster and the goals, and they really see that, okay, I need to really get up to speed and be innovative and create more environmentally friendly products. That is what the market will ask for in the future, and also right now. So we have clusters on several topics, but I have now focused on the ocean space because of the Blue Circular Economy project. And we can see, of course, that all of these industry-driven clusters also needs to cooperate, and also does so. So we say that in the southwest region of Norway, we have an ocean industry supercluster that together can solve lots of the possibilities, challenges that we have. Yes, and I'm closing in now on finish, but I just wanted to show you how we are setting up the program. But after the evaluation that showed a really good outcome of the project, of the program, we also got some suggestions for improvements, and we see that we are making some changes because of that. and we are still going to focus on cluster development. We think that the clusters need most support and and they need financing for operating cost of the cluster in a certain amount of time. But today they are going, when this period is finished, they just go out of the program and they have no possibility of getting financing from for big projects like the cruise ship projects of Maritime Cleantech. So we're trying to reduce the time that the clusters needs pure financing of operating cost. We wish to work more close with the businesses to see to make them see even more the gains that they are having by participating in these projects, so that they will finance more themselves of the operating cost, so that we can even more than today finance large projects for joint collaboration. So that will be in the future. And we also are investing more in learning and development platform to spread competence amongst the clusters, so that not everyone needs to find their own way of doing things, that we can use the mature clusters, for instance, to transfer knowledge when someone is starting on a brand new topic. So when we are looking for clusters, and of course we are looking for these qualities because we from experience know that these are the clusters that are going to actually reach their ambitions. So that's really important to when you're now thinking of creating a cluster yourself between the companies that are interested in this topic. You should. I think it will be good to have a look at these criteria and see if that's possible to build a good cluster out of it. Because it's really important, as I said, that there is a clear and joint ambition and well-defined focus areas which are rooted in innovation and transformation and growth. And the businesses and the cooperating partners are good realizing these ambitions. Because of course we are looking for okay, you have this ambition. Who are going to reach them? Are you in the position to actually do that? And how are you going to do that? So there should be a potential for increased growth, value creation. That's important for the businesses to make them actually engage in the project. And we see that it's really important to have a cluster organization that could work for the companies and together with the companies and secure project, and then to be an implementation plan. And as well, a criteria for us is that we wish that the clusters and the companies are eager to participate in developing ecosystems for innovation, both regionally and nationally, also internationally. So just to sum up, in Norway, this has been a 15 years learning and development process, and we are increasing our efforts also in the future. So that's a good signal that at least we think that it is a good way of work. We started when we started, it was more like a public initiatives from a few companies, and now we have many industry-driven clusters, and the companies are very eager to work together on joint challenges. And we see that investments in clusters pay off, and that our clusters are a very important instrument in transformation processes for the industry. Yeah, that was it.
Thanks, Mary. Very comprehensive and extensive presentation. So thanks for sharing. I'm going to take back the host, Mary.
Yeah, I think I have to stop sharing.
And if you can stay with us, because we will move to questions. So we might start with questions in the room. Mike, and you might say what organisation you're from and who your question is directed to. So that's one. Martin has a question as well.
Great description.
If you just 1 minute, Martin. Yeah.
And then the logistics.
Yeah.
Right.
Martin, you might just say that.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm.
1 second, Mary.
I'm Martin Charter, so I'm focusing on. So it's still not on. It goes for the blah blah blah. Tap on.
Everybody online, can you hear us?
Yeah, now, but you.
I would use the PC mic, and I did this. Obviously the live connection on it.
I can't hear Mary.
Yeah.
We need the mic.
Okay, so just whoever's. Yeah.
Okay, so how can I take back the
Yeah, it'll be okay.
Yeah. So just a second. You should be. You can host. Yeah.
We can host. Okay. Okay, so mute. Okay. So everybody online, can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Okay.
Swap places.
Okay. If you have to ask a question, you have to make the walk.
Okay, that's a good phrase. That's a good phrase. Okay, I've made the walk. Thank you for your description. You say there's 15 years of learning, so I'd like you to highlight your key 3 lessons learned, but also for people who are looking at developing clusters, what are the 2 or 3 things that you advise not to do?
And we won't answer that one yet, Mary. We're going to take 1 or 2 questions because
you get time to
we'll have to change the sound machines again. Mike, do you want to come around and
Sure.
just pick up the microphone? Yeah. So the second question here.
Yes, so my name is Mike Devan. I chair a business organization here, a forum that's focused on developing an economic corridor along the Atlantic region from the bottom of the country to top of the country. And we also have focused on a government task force that's trying to implement some of the strategies that we have developed. Basically, the challenge for the Western regions is that the gross value add per person always centers around 20K. The East Coast, Greater Dublin area is about 60K per person, and the average is about 40K per person. And our objective in the next 20 years is to get ourselves above the national average. To do that, we believe that we have to increase the GDP contribution from those regions from what it is now to 3 to 4 times that. And to do that, we have to increase the population to double the population. And that's largely an exercise to fill out the hollowed profile that we have along the region, which is a lot of young people, a lot of old people, and the centre is hollowed out because there's been net migration out of all of the Western regions over a long period of time, fundamentally since the foundation of the state. So the question I have then is in that context, we are looking at an economic document that we're working on at the moment on low carbon, high value work and how we develop that. And so circular economy, as Ian pointed out, is something, and waste remediation is something that we have a big interest in, whether it's green or blue, it doesn't really matter. The difficulty or the challenge that we see is that from a macroeconomic point of view, it is very hard to create a business case for the type of commitment as well as investment that has to be made. And if I use the green analogy for a moment, we, after a phase of mass production followed by consumer-led service thinking, we have people that believe or have come to believe that cheap food that's moved around is something that they can have at will, and so a small portion of people will pay money or pay a premium for something that's getting them doing the right thing, whether that is buying food locally or whether that is remediating waste or whatever. But the majority of people, particularly people who are constrained economically, tend to go for the available options that are affordable. And this is the problem we see with the circular economy and the drive towards eliminating waste. Plastics and food, for example, that's just a fact of life. But also in there, you have food being moved across Europe because we have a single market, and cheap food coming through Europe, moved around with huge carbon footprint associated with it. Yet that's not reflected in the price to the consumer. And so we see the system working on the basis of interventions. And then the example from the last speaker is the same. It's a state-funded initiative to support clustering. But from an economic point of view, there's no basis. So somewhere valuations have to change and have to reflect the low carbon prices that we're in. And our interest is in understanding or trying to understand what work has gone on, particularly in Norway in this regard, because it is separate to Europe in the sense that you have control over things yourself and you make decisions. As I understand, you've made a decision around fish farming that you will cap the amount of offshore farming you're doing until you can establish the harm or otherwise that it's doing to your environment. Those kind of decisions are not being made by sovereign states within Europe. They just follow a trend. So I'm interested in understanding from a macroeconomic point of view what you see as a change that can occur, is occurring, and what you've tried yourself. That makes sense. And I think that's Marina turning the question to.
Yeah, and there's a lot in that. We might discuss that in the room as well. So I'm conscious that Margaret Ray, Professor Margaret Ray, if I'm right, no, Dr. Margaret Ray has joined us from the Marine Institute as well in Ireland. So we have Margaret works a lot on the Atlantic Alliances and internationally, so we've additional expertise that has joined us. So with those two questions, so we will go to you, Mary, for a piece. We might go to you, Marina, and others who might want to join in and contribute. And if it's okay with the people online, we'll have to leave you in listening mode for the purposes of this conversation, but please do post a question online. So who wants to take the first question from Martin? Is that directed at Mary? Okay, Mary. Okay, do you want to take the first question, Mary?
Yeah, I can do that. And that's what I would not recommend of doing. And the main thing, the first thing I was thinking of when you asked that question is that I would definitely not just sit down one or two people and kind of carving up the plan for the whole cluster. We see that it's really, really important to have both ambitions and goals and an implementation plan that are deeply rooted in all of the partners, and that they are engaged in these questions. We often see, because and I can only speak from experience, that here when people often find this application period quite demanding, and they also often not use enough time in engaging the companies and the partners in what they really want to do. And I would not think that this is just something that the government is supposed to be investing in. We are doing this because we think that it's a good thing to do, and that it's difficult in the beginning for the companies to see this, so we can give some risk investments, but from the start, we think that that's really creating value for the companies long term, so they will invest in the project themselves. And one typical mistake is to set ambitions and an implementation plan that doesn't match. If you want to be world leading in an area, you need to have an implementation plan that is going to take you there, and then you have to invest. To be world leading, you have to invest some time as well. So we are always looking for a consistency between the ambition, the goals and the sub goals, and the implementation plan.
Thanks, Mari. Thank you. Who wants to take my question around the macroeconomic consumer behavior policy?
I can say something generally. The one on fish farming is too specific. I don't know the answer to that, but obviously the problem you state that most consumers will choose the cheapest option, not the best option in terms of footprint, is obviously a problem. And I must say, when doing this project and having like the stakeholder event in Norway, some people came up to me and said something that obviously creates a huge paradox, and that is the focus on plastic. And the problem is with corporate social responsibility in general, if you do good one place, you might do bad someplace else. Like, we want to prolong the life of plastic because plastic is here for time being and for foreseeable future, so we need to relate to that. So one point is to not discard of it, like this one-time cutlery and stuff that people just don't use, and like the plastic bag I get it plain yesterday. I said no, thank you, no plastic cup. We shouldn't even have that here. But yeah, so that's the problem. We want to prolong the life and have a circular life of that. But then there's the problem, and try to educate consumers to want to buy this, and also purchases, like business to business, also to purchase these products. Then again, you have all this information that you should use plastic products at all. You shouldn't use, for instance, clothes made out of, like I didn't bring that today, but I have this jacket and swimwear and socks that's made out of fishing gear, because you get the microplastic, which we don't really look into in this project. And now it's showed, I just read an article like a day or two ago, that the water we drink from plastic bottles, there's so much plastic. And they checked what we eat and drink, and people get quite a bit of plastic inside of it. It's not just the birds and the fish that we see that get these huge bits of it, but we get this micro. So in that way, we shouldn't really be using plastic at all. So that's a problem for us, that we want to promote that you should prolong the life and make new products, and then you want people to buy them, use them. But you have to use them in a sensible way then. And I guess one way with regard to clothes, I guess all washing machines should have a filter that filters out the plastic. It should be possible to make that, obviously. And yeah, so, but if you get one thing done, you have to fix something else. So that's what you have to remember. And it will probably cost. And that's a problem, because obviously the more wealthy people will try, hopefully, to do their best, but it will be harder for those who don't have the funds if it costs more with regard to food, as you said, and also to the products. but as long as there is plastic, we have to do something about it. And I think that to create value and prolong life and make new things will help. But then you have to fix something somewhere else to make that viable. So we have to deal with this in the project because we get questions on that. Yeah.
And Martin might want to respond. Catherine might want to come in, and Mary might want to come in on the macroeconomic and the policy. So Martin, we'll go to you first.
Okay, it's very, very quick. I mean, clustering emerged from water, water 80. And one of the also things that he discussed was using the regulation to drive innovation. Now we know single-use plastic directive is passed. Could you use somehow that regulation to drive innovation? The next part of this, but also, could you use that to stimulate R&D into bioplastics, etc., etc.? It's still, I mean, could, and it's a choice, Ireland become a leader, in this area? I mean, it's so good to decide to be a follower in some instances, but to really get on top of the issue, perhaps to explore ahead of other countries the infrastructure to recycle the nets and the other marine plastic, because that might have spin-offs in the technologies as well that could be exported. But that's just initial thought.
Catherine, do you want to add anything more?
I suppose in terms of the licensing, I suppose we had a stakeholder meeting yesterday, particularly at single-use plastics and the Port Reception Facilities Directive. And that interface of the key one, because unless we have that systematic approach that you mentioned, there's a gap there that you can do the SME development and etc., but unless you have that interface between the vessels and port infrastructure, then it's that's a barrier to externalizing plastic, using it, and that circular economy. So we're trying to look specifically enable that part because it's so critical to the bits on either side. So
can I just say, can I just make a comment on that, please? This is Ian from the Western Development Commission. I think it's a fascinating question that Mike brought up, and should really be answering, but and probably beyond us in some respects, because it is a societal thing. Alluded to all the way back to tourism. One thing that strikes me is one of the ways in which we as a government and independent state agency handle this in other areas, in our case alcohol, is that when we do a project that deals with one of these situations where society sees the risk of something but hasn't yet decided whether it's a fatal risk or not, if you know what I mean, and doesn't ban it, right? Is there's a sort of a workaround. This is simply for us, this is not the societal approach. One of the things we do on other projects, or we thought about, especially working with consultants, was if we were going to do something, for example, like tourism on alcohol-based products, which obviously have societal impact, we work closely with charities and people who are based on warning people about the dangers of this, so that whilst we are perhaps promoting the product in the sense that in this case tourism we were looking at, so imagine a tourism product based on alcohol, we would have like literally the health warning at the bottom that at least allows people to think about what they're doing. And it just struck me while we were talking here about plastics, your comments particularly. Probably there is some scope which says somewhere in the project, and when we do a promotion and communication, that, by the way, we've talked with, I don't know, some proper concerned organizations who can advise on maybe what is a good heads-up warning, so some information to stop their use of plastics, as well as we're continuing to recycle it. Because our question is not to ask for more plastic. Our question is how do we deal with stuff that's already there? You know, and we can communicate that, but we probably should be responsible enough to also, I can't say for the health board, but you know what I mean. Put something in there that says, look, there are other well-informed organizations that will advise you about alternatives to plastics. Please go there. Now that's kind of counterintuitive to people produce plastics and petrochemical companies. Of course, it's perfectly logical. We're not really wishing to see more of this. We just want to see it better used and used in a way which doesn't damage our society. So that's just a thought.
And I suppose at the moment, there isn't an alternative to plastic in vision care. You know, there's, you know, okay, there's the dino and things like that. But, there's, so, and again, it's where we want to be and where we are now in terms of the problem. And there was another, so I had and they were nearly not interested in the kind of in used or retired gear. And I'm like, we're enforcing that behavior. Like, so basically, you're saying there's only a marketing application to ghost gear that's extracted by divers, as opposed to responsible fishermen. So there is an alternative to marine plastics. It's retired gear that the fishermen have, and the ports and the harbour masters that they are managing and giving as a product or as a supply feed. And I think that's a mindset that in that context. So instead of this sexy ghost gear, it's responsible, managed, handled, segregated, circular plastics. And I think that would be very important to change that narrative, because I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. I really just wanted to.
Yeah, and I think one way to change this behavior, obviously you need to improve the port facilities, but also to make them make use of them. If you say they are in place, if you come to the next level, is to have like a mixture of what we call the whip and the carrot. I don't know.
Stick in the car.
Yeah.
I like the whip. Really?
No, because you can find them if they don't. They register the equipment when they buy it, and they can register when they turn it in. And if they lose it, it's alerted, and where they lost it, it can be caught before it goes fishing, things like that. So, and you find those who doesn't comply with this, but also it can be the carrot that you have like a take-back scheme that you may get some little funding from handing it back, like you do with plastic bottles, so you can get some money from it. So I think you can have a mixture of that to really just change the behavior. Because I don't know if you've seen a picture of the bird mountain outside of Ålesund, where the puffin, for instance, is. There's lots of puffins there, and also seagulls, obviously. And it used to be so nice and huge touristic attraction. And now, if you go closely, you don't see it with your bare eyes, but there has been a photographer recently, and you look at the nests, and you see birds hanging down. You see it's all made of colorful ropes and nets, and it's so terrible to see.
You have a chimney or a flue or oil or blocks, you guarantee this item in there for the forest. The tire wraps, plastic tire wraps that you use those all the time.
And our National Heritage Site, Skellig Michael, Little Skellig is the same. It's covered in the guano, but you also see the electric blue and greens from the nets. Yeah, they're using for their nests.
I also think that policymakers need to take this perspective on the legislation is going down the extended producer responsibility route. Some changes positive, but if you go back to the old process of looking at product policy, which means that the instruments influence the demand side and the supply side. So I think we're getting locked into one single instrument to try and sort of and legislation is only one instrument. So I think we need to look at the full toolbox.
I think that it's the valuations that have to change, because we've I don't know what, 20 years now of green energy experience, and we know that PV or even wind is not viable unless an intervention, market intervention, and that's the theory that you can make an intervention and it changes behaviour is not actually correct. That's been proven that does not
it may be intervention as a point of time to initiate.
If you can't follow that intervention by correction, the financial correction in the market that changes the valuation, nothing's going to change. And this is the basic problem that we're going to have with circular economy. And the idea is a great idea, and everybody understands there will be 80% of the population that says, no thank you, not in my backyard. And
They don't relate to it. They don't think it's there.
Well, even when they relate to it, I mean, you know, there's a retail chain in Ireland right now. They advertise the fact that they can produce a shopping basket for, you know, for any family at 40% less than the rest of the market. Okay? And they are clearly bringing food through the chain quite legitimately from other parts of the country with huge carbon footprint associated with it. And there's no penalty on it. And even if you look at our own economy, we ship out a container of food. For every container of food we ship out, we have a container of food. There's huge carbon footprint, and we're not able to change that. And until you change that, you can't really go after this stuff. So I think that the circular economy needs to grab a hold of this, because it's not going to go anywhere unless we get this issue sorted.
I think it's separating out macroeconomic view of circular economy, what you can do on the ground. So things like remanufacturing in market sectors proven to be a very strategic and value-driven model.
Yeah, well, so the way the
But that's beyond, much more beyond we. You know, the photocopier guys take the stuff back, they upgrade and replace and resell 8 lines in some of those places. That's a system which is beyond materials recycling. Circular economy should be much further down the line. It's about the use phase, and it's about the reuse of the value in the materials, products, and components. So it is a bit of a mindset change. It's not about end-of-life, it's about.
It is, but I think it works there because the new legislation clearly says you buy a washing machine, never take it over. It's a very clear process that happens.
One tool.
And so that's the driver. From the consumer's point of view, that's the driver. So it doesn't end up in the backyard, filling a hole in the ditch. It now goes somewhere, and someone has responsibility, and is paid for at the point of
remanufacturing is driven by companies because it's an economic. So I think it's also.
Yeah, I think I need to.
I think, I mean, approach you can't do part of the system, not the other. I agree with valuations. I also wonder, are we looking at it a little bit, because we are in the transition phase, and I would like to say the timelines of implementing new policy that is relevant to what's coming down the pipeline in terms of climate breakdown will actually start to shift evaluation from the top. At the same time, there's possibilities and free routes for people, you know, in their day-to-day lives to kind of make. And I think we're just hopefully ahead of that, and we're still looking at it a little bit from a business as it has been done perspective, even policy. You know, policy as it's been a bit slow, a bit behind, whatever. And I'm hoping that will have to shift, or yeah. I think that's a bit of a little blind spot, perhaps.
I think I don't want to drift too far from what we're trying to do, but I do think there is a huge information gap and a huge cultural shift that has to happen. I think everybody's saying that. And I think when people do see economic benefit from remanufacturing or from recycling of plastics and all that, I think that we know that what drives a lot of disposable economic models is experiential, what people find there. And the simple point is a lot of the climate change agenda is not seen as valuable as people get. Only that tips, not just in the US past. I think that's probably the best way to get this valuation on. That's what you forward, because I think until that happens, you know, we're not going to see that huge change. And I think this project, bring it back, contributes to that change, because for all the war stories of banking and outsourcing, scaling, Michael and all of this, getting that out to people is really, really important. But then also offering solutions, and it gets people to start really thinking value terms, not just in emotional terms, because we that will change.
Can I just break for 1 second? I'm going to close, if everybody's okay here, I'm going to close the online meeting, not this meeting, because people are having difficulty with the sound. So I'm just going to notify them If everybody's okay, I'm going to close the online part of the meeting. I'd like to thank Mary, Innovation Norway. I'd like to thank those who have joined online. I know we haven't had any questions, but we are here. You have our email address. You have Stephen's email address, so please follow up with us afterwards, and we will be in touch with the outcome of the webinar and of our partner meeting here in Galway. Appreciate your time and for joining us this morning, so thank you. Sorry, Mary. Go ahead. Yeah. Mute.
Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry. You can send out the presentation that I sent you if you, yeah.
Yeah, that's very good.
And thank you, Mary, for your time.
Okay.
And for your presentation.
Thank
We'll
you.
speak to you soon. Thank you, Mary. Thank you. Bye.
Okay, bye.
If you have the presentations also.